Welcome to I Am Refocused Radio, guys. Once again, we are here today. I appreciate you all being here on the holiday. We have a special guest, Dr. Danny Brassell. He is the co-founder of the Well-Crafted Story Workshop, and I can't wait to talk about what he has to bring to us today. He's not just a powerhouse of energy and wisdom, often described as Jim Carrey with a Ph.D. Dr. Danny Brassell is also a globally renowned speaker, author, and educator who has robbed over 3,500 audiences worldwide with astounding 19 books underneath his belt, including Leadership Begins with Motivation and Misfits and Crackpots. He's turned storytelling to a science with communication into an art form. Once again, I want to say thank you for your time spending us today on the show. I want to say to you, man, welcome to the show. How you doing, man?
Fantastic. Thanks so much for having me, Shemaiah. More importantly, thanks for spreading some joy in the world. We need a lot more of you.
Yes, sir. I appreciate that, man. So let's kind of jump in with your journey. I mean, from teaching in South Central LA to becoming a global speaker, that's pretty fascinating. So kind of tell us what's some of the key lessons from the classroom to be on amazing stages.
Yeah, I guess if I was going to write an autobiography, it would be called Pivots, because 30 years ago, I was a reporter covering President Bush Sr. in the 1992 presidential election. It was a great job. I got to meet every editor of every major daily. And one editor offered me the city beat for $16,500 a year. Meanwhile, a friend told me that they were hiring teachers in South Central Los Angeles in the inner city for $25,000 a year. So Shemaiah, I became a teacher for the noblest of reasons, for the high pay. And I fell in love with teaching. I've taught all age levels from preschoolers all the way up to rocket scientists. I can make that claim because I used to teach English as a second language to engineering students at the University of Southern California. And then in 2005, my wife and I attended a real estate seminar, which turned out to be a scam, and we lost everything. And I could give you the woe is me story, but I'm a positive person. I learned a lot. First of all, I learned my wife is my soulmate. She stuck by me through a lot of nonsense. Second of all, I learned money's not the end all be all, because you can lose it just like that. Third, I try not to judge other people, because if I was somebody looking at what I had done, I would have said, well, you deserve all that. But now I realize if you don't know everything about a person, you really don't know anything about a person. Fourth, I became a Christian, which I'm always embarrassed to admit, but the more I read the Bible, I'm not the first screw up to find Jesus. And fifth, I didn't want to file for bankruptcy. And my accountant said, well, you have to make this much more money this year. And so I started speaking on the side, and I hit his number right on the number. Well, the next year, Shemaiah, he gave me a much higher number, and I hit that number right on the number. So in year 3, I thought, well, maybe I should set a higher number. And basically, during one of the worst economic downturns in American history, I was able to build up a highly lucrative speaking business, which attracted a lot of different people. Basically, about 8 years ago, one of the top, well, probably the top speaking company, I don't like to name my clients. I like to give them their privacy, but some of the top speakers you've ever heard of hired me to start coaching them. And then about 3 years ago, one of the guys I used to coach with, Coach Jimmy Hayes Nelson, he and we saw a problem with the way that a lot of these bureaus worked. Is they would have about 30 to 50 people in the room, and over 2 days, people would put together their presentations, but they never really had ongoing coaching and any kind of training on how to actually present those presentations. And so Coach Jimmy Hayes Nelson, Dave Ward, and I created Well-Crafted Story Workshop a few years back, and we have a great time. I mean, we work with some top names in various fields, but the people that give me the most satisfaction are the entrepreneurs, executives, and small business owners that are probably a lot of your audience, helping those people create what we call a well-crafted story. President Bush would have called it his stump speech. You can call it peanut butter and jelly. This is a speech that you deliver again and again to introduce yourself to new audiences, to help you grow your business and your impact. So it's a very long answer to your short question.
No, that's perfect. I like the details, because you, like all great leaders and people who have some kind of form of success, they had some help along the way, whether it's inspiration from hardships or inspirations from mentors or people that we look up to. In your books, I mentioned earlier, you use the Paul Harvey style storytelling. Kind of share with the audience a little bit some of the inspiration behind that.
Yeah, so when I was a middle school teacher, I was the only teacher in my school that none of my students were ever tardy to class. And it's because I always started off class with a Paul Harvey story. Growing up, you're younger than me, but I used to listen to Paul Harvey on the radio. He'd come on the radio every day at 12:15 and say, "I'm Paul Harvey," with the rest of the story. And my kids loved it. The whole 5 minutes, they're trying to guess who's he talking about or what's the company. But the problem with Paul Harvey is a lot of his stories are about like Fred Astaire and Sears and Roebuck. Well, kids today don't even know what that is. And so I wrote this book, Leadership Begins with Motivation, as an homage to Paul Harvey, but my stories were more contemporary people. But after writing it, Shemaiah, I read it, and completely unintentionally, a lot of my examples were of white male Americans. And so that's what spurred me to write this latest book, Misfits and Crackpots, which most of the stories in here are stories about women, minorities, and international success stories around the world. Because I think, I was watching a show last week. It was horrible. It was called The News. And it totally depressed me. And I realized that's why people are so down all the time. They're reading all these down things around them. And there's all kinds. I mean, that's why I tell them, listen to your podcast. I'm always inspired listening to your podcast because you're part of the solution. Most people are part of the problem. And so I think if you start surrounding people with inspiration and show them how they can do it, it'll make us all a little bit better off.
I appreciate you saying that, because one thing I tell people all the time now, my last guest said from the barbershop to the top. And so I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna have to steal that, because I want people to understand that when you are consistent with one thing, it doesn't just open up doors, but it allows you to be a better student. Because long term, I will always be a student of the game in media, because yes, I've been able to talk to some amazing people like yourself and celebrities, but it wasn't because I was something like I was owned to do that. It wasn't like I had the right to do that. It was more like I had the privilege and opportunity to do something that most people be like, wow, how in the world did that happen? Well, guess what? It takes discipline. It takes the acknowledgement that you will have to be a student if you actually want to make progress. And going back to you also taught, you harp on how reading, mastery, and public speaking are connected. Those are two skills that I feel that our audience can really tap into learning more from you. So when you think about those two things, reading and public speaking, how they're connected, why do you think these two skill sets can really change someone's life?
Well, it's ironic, Shemaiah. That's a great question, because I grew up hating reading. My father was a librarian. I always hated the library. Always smelled funny. The furniture was uncomfortable. There was always an elderly woman telling me to be quiet. There's always some freaky homeless guy thinks he's a vampire hanging out by the shelves. It wasn't until I started teaching in the hood where I saw a lot of my kids didn't have a lot of the advantages I had growing up, and I basically said, shame on me. I mean, I was very blessed. Both of my parents were in the home. We were poor, but we always had food on the table. And my parents always read in front of us kids, to us kids, and we had plenty of access to reading materials. And so it became very important to me to make sure that, maybe you're in San Antonio, Texas, but if you have a library card, you have a passport to the entire world. And not only can you learn from people around the world, you can learn from people that have been dead for 300 years. And I read books. It can be a horrible book, but if there's one little story in there, it was worth it for me. I read a book recently on marketing, and the book was horrible. It was really one of the most boring books I had read, but there was one story which was a treasure. So this was a marketing guy going around the world trying to figure out the next best thing, and he's in Chile. He's watching these fishermen, and he notices they're catching one fish, and they're throwing these other fish in a different batch. And he's like, oh, are you throwing those fish in the other batch because you're getting paid for the other fish? They're like, yeah. And he's like, well, is that the reason you're eating that fish? They're like, well, yeah, we're eating it because of that, but also because it tastes better. He's like, oh, can I try it? And they're like, sure. So he tries it. He's like, oh my gosh, this fish is so much better than the one they're paying you to catch. What's it called? And they're like, the toothfish. He's like, the toothfish? That's the worst name. So he thinks about it. He brings it to the United States, and it's the #1 selling fish in restaurants. He renamed the toothfish Chilean sea bass. I love that. I'd never heard that story. I'm like, that was worth the whole book, was just to read that story. So this is when you're on stage, with my clients, I'm trying to teach them to tell personal stories, but every now and then I have a difficult person. It's like, oh, nothing's ever happened to me, which is totally untrue. But when I get a difficult person like that, I say, well, if you look at one of the best-selling personal development books of all time, It was Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, in which he shares no personal stories. What he did is he interviewed all these millionaires and shared their stories. And so it's kind of like your podcast. You could totally make this podcast into a book based on the different stories that your guest are sharing. And so that's what I always tell people is the importance of reading is you just become much more interesting.
When you have the ability to teach, usually it's because of something you learned through your professional career. What are some of the patterns, if you will, that you've seen not just help you through difficult times, but understanding the treasure of the lesson in between those times?
Yeah, so a lot of the people, Shemaiah, that I work with, they're terrified of speaking or they have no confidence on stage. And so I share with them the story when I was in India a few years ago speaking at schools. I got all the kids at this school pumped up and they come up to me afterwards. They're all saying, "Oh, I love that. I love that." And then I look and there's this little boy. He's about 6 years old and he has tears in his eyes. And I noticed, Shemaiah, he's missing his left arm. And he looks up at me and he's like, "How can I succeed?" And so I crouch down, I get to his eye level. I'm like, when I was your age, I went to 18 different schools before I was 12 years old. Everybody used to call me stupid because I stuttered. And eventually I went to a school and a teacher, she worked with me one-on-one and she would sing things to me. And I found I could sing them back without my stutter. It's kind of like the movie The King's Speech. And eventually I lost my stutter and I became a swan. But I looked at that boy in the eyes. I'm like, isn't it interesting that the little boy everybody used to make fun of because he couldn't speak right now gets paid ridiculous sums of money to travel the world to do what?
Speak.
And he gets this big grin. He's like, speak. I'm like, don't let anybody ever tell you what you can't do. Anything's possible if you set your mind to it. And so that's an example of just my own personal experiences, what I've learned. I work with people that are completely most of the people I work with, they have no interest in speaking on stage. What we're trying to do is to grow the number of clients that they're working with. And I think the fastest way to do that is on stages, whether it's on a physical stage or a podcast or an interview. How do you get the word out about the services that you offer? And it's a skill set. It can be practiced. I guarantee you, Shemaiah, the first time you did your podcast, you sucked. Oh, yeah. And the second time you did your podcast, you sucked, but you didn't suck as bad as the first time. And now you've got like this finely well-oiled machine and it's second nature to you. And that's a perfect example. I mean, it's the same thing as driving. And, my youngest daughter's learning how to drive. And right now it's fun to watch her because she has her hands are at 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock. She's adjusting mirrors. And I guarantee you within a year, she'll be driving with one hand, eating a Big Mac, putting on her lipstick, listening to the CD player or whatever. And that's the same with speaking. Is I try to help people. I don't try. I help my clients really get very proficient and competent on stage.
I appreciate you saying that because I've been kind of letting people know the secret sauce of how we've been able to stay around since 2017. Mm-hmm. And it's right on the money. When we first started the show in the barbershop, not only were we limited with audio equipment, but we were limited in skill set. We were limited in what the goal was going to be. We didn't know the North Star. If anything, it was like no star. It was nothing guiding us except for, let me speak for myself. It was nothing guiding me in the beginning except for ego. I had to learn the hard way that as soon as I became a student and humbled myself and said, what can I do to actually learn what I'm doing? What is the real mission here? Are we trying to help people? Are we trying to educate people? Or are we just trying to put out fluff and make people feel good and smile? I mean, you can make people smile through education, but it takes those reps, if you will. The more you get active, the more you stay active. And the part that's going to help me land the plane is that when I had the honor to talk to Michael Rappaport twice, the first time I asked him a very powerful question, changed the whole game in the podcast world for me. I said, how did you get to where you are? Mind you, he's a famous actor, big time in the 90s, man of honor. It's what some people think about. Mm-hmm. But
Friends, he was on Friends too.
Yes. And what he said was so powerful. And spoke to me in my soul. He said, Shemaiah, I had dipped my toes in the pool. I jumped all in. Because when it comes to your career, you have to do it. No one's going to save you. No one's going to say, hey, man, you can do this. No, most of the time, you have to prove everyone that's saying you can't, that you can. So what I took from that was no more am I going to just take this podcast platform like, oh, I get to do the show. Look at me. I'm the big shot. No, it was more of this is now my responsibility. How can I grow with my audience, not just claim that I have the top speakers in the world to be on the show, but that means nothing. If I'm not growing personally, then I'm not doing anything. I'm just basically trying to act like I'm some big shot. In reality, I'm just as shallow as the person that doesn't do anything with their life. So I appreciate you saying that, because I wish more people would be honest about that, because we like to talk about our rewards and our recognitions, but we don't want to talk about the failures. I have so many failures. It'll probably take 20 days to list them, but I'm here because of them. It didn't stop me. It pushed me to go deeper.
I love that you shared that, Shemaya. There's so many things I love about that story. First of all, anybody can sit there and brag about Tiger Woods being the greatest golfer in the world. They don't look at the thousands of hours he's on that golf course and on that driving range, getting blisters on his hand, hitting shots. People don't look at all the work that you had to put into it. Second of all, you actually did something which was really great, which is the first exercise I take people through when we're working is how do you get clarity on your presentation? And you asked yourself those two questions, which a lot of people fail to ask themselves. Those two questions are, who is your audience? A lot of people say, well, my audience is everybody. I'm like, well, if your audience is everybody, your audience is nobody. You should niche it down, figure out exactly who that person is you're helping. And that leads to the second question is, what is the problem that I solve? If you can answer both of those questions, and you'd be amazed, 95% of the people I work with who are mostly very successful, they can't answer succinctly one or both of those questions. And so when you really get that focus and figure out who's my audience and what's the problem I'm solving, that's when you can move mountains. There was a third thing I was going to mention. Oh, the other thing was you acknowledged, one of my favorite speakers is a woman by the name of Brene Brown. And she's really talks about the importance of vulnerabilities. And I admire you for this. It's the first, if I can give your audience one strategy, stop talking about your successes. Start talking about your failures, because not everybody in your audience has succeeded, but they've all failed. And the more you talk about your own failures, your audience is going to see themselves in you. It's the quickest way to build trust with an audience. So I commend you for sharing that today and throughout your podcast.
Well, I appreciate you being on once again. Listen, I Am Refocused Radio, talking to our special guest, Dr. Danny Brassell. He is the co-founder of the Well-Crafted Story Workshop, and this ties into my next question for you. Let's talk about the clients that you've been able to work with. When you look at some of the biggest mistakes that entrepreneurs have been making, trying to leverage speaking for their business growth, what are some ways that you try to help them shift to becoming not just better, but really use their why or their reason of being in the game to use it to grow their business? Because it's one thing to use speaking to leverage, but we make a lot of mistakes along the way, and a lot of people can get frustrated and quit too early.
Yeah, a lot of people, they worry about sounding salesy from the stage. And so here's my strategy for that. Stop selling, start serving. I want you, when you're on stage, to look at your audience like they're dying and you have the antidote. And if they don't get your antidote, they will die. When you look at it from a different point of view, how can I serve my audience? This is what I always tell people. Whether your audience determines that they're going to do business with you or not, that I don't care about that. They've given you their most precious asset, their time. And so you have a responsibility to actually serve them while you're with them. And so it's very important to me. I always make sure we have at least one short-term solution and a long-term solution for the audience. The next biggest mistake, and you might even do this, I was on a podcast earlier and the person did it. Probably the biggest mistake I see people make is they don't make one clear offer. So I was on a podcast earlier, and the hostess at the end of her podcast, she said, make sure you like, subscribe, and give us a 5-star review. And I told her afterwards when we were off air, I'm like, you just told your audience to do 3 things. They're not going to do any of them. Like, you got to give them one clear call to action. And this is a mistake I see again and again. And your call to action, it can be an unpaid call to action, like subscribe to my podcast or book a free phone call with me. It can be a paid offer, like buy my product or invest in my coaching program. But you need to make sure that you're guiding your audience to that one specific call to action. And if you've set up your presentation the correct way, well, I shouldn't say the correct way, but the way that Coach Jimmy and I train people to do is you've been whispering sweet nothings in that person's ear. So they're trying to, by the time you ask for the second date, your audience isn't feeling like they're getting sold. They're like, oh, I was hoping there was a way I could stay in touch with you. That's what a truly professional presentation should accomplish. I mean, I always tell this to clients. I mean, it's great if people applaud you, and it's great if people tell you you're a great speaker. Those are nice things, absolutely. But the only way I measure your effectiveness is how many people in the audience have decided to take the next step with you. So I'll give you an example. We were working with a financial planner a couple of months back by the name of Richard. And Richard used to start off his presentation, my name's Richard. I've been in the business for 30 years. I've made my clients over $1 billion. I worked with this famous person and this famous person. I said, Richard, time out. What are the 3 most important elements to real estate? Location, location, location. It's all right to brag, but you're doing it at the wrong part of your presentation. And so we changed his introduction. So now he starts describing the very first client he booked like 30 years ago. And it's hilarious. I mean, he made so many mistakes. I have no idea why this person invested money with him. And this was what was interesting. The way he gets clients is about twice a week. He has these free steak dinners for about 15 married couples in their 50s at a local steak restaurant. And he used to average about 6 out of the 15 people would book a call with him. And he noticed that the guy always sat there with his arms crossed, like, what's he trying to sell me? How long is this going to take? Things like that. Now that he's changed his story, he said the same guy is patting his knee. He's laughing so hard, and he's increased the number of phone calls from 6 out of 15 to 12 out of 15. That's how we're going to measure your effectiveness. Like when I'm working with politicians, same 2 questions. Who's your audience? What's the problem you're trying to solve? Politicians basically have 2 different types of speeches. One is to get your vote. The other one is to get a donation from you for their campaign. Those are 2 very different asks, and you have to set up totally different presentations that way. So, but again, by taking the point of view, I'm serving my audience, it's just a totally different mindset, Shemai. I mean, you have that mindset. It's not I'm a big believer. Donald Miller has a great company called Story Brand. And I like the way he says it. He says, when you're on stage, you're the guide and your audience is the hero. You are Obi-Wan Kenobi and your audience is Luke Skywalker. Pump them up. I have no problems making people feel like I'm an idiot. That's fine. If it's going to boost your ego to make you feel better than me, I'll do that every single day of the week. Everybody wants to feel important. Mary Kay, Cosmetics, what's her last name? Mary Kay Ash. One of the best books I read is Mary Kay Ash. She had a quote, and I'm going to butcher it, but she said, everybody you encounter has an invisible necklace that says, make me feel important. And that's what a good speaker should be doing from the stage, is making their audience feel important.
Man, that's exactly what we try to do on this platform. I had a honor having, because I work in media, so being in the radio business, understanding, working with clients and working with people, I had a guy share some wisdom that I kept for all these years. And I believe this part, outside of the team of people I have, this is part of the core of why I've been able to see any kind of impact with this show. And that is, he said, when you were talking on the microphone, talk to that one person. Don't talk to everyone. Don't think you're talking to everyone. Only talk to one person. When you make it personal, it's basically like they're eavesdropping on the phone call. And when he said that, it changed the whole game. And you touched on earlier about just the success part of the show. And I want to touch on this because I know we talk about the failures, but here's the kicker with this show and the platform. When my call to action changed to share this with someone, if you feel like this helped you, share this with someone, because we like to cut the fluff. Instead of going through the emails and going through click this button, click that, they're going to do that on their own. That's what I've learned throughout the years. If they really, truly believe, they're just going to do on their own. They don't need you to emphasize, click that button or shoot that email. They're going to run back home or hop out the car, wherever they listen to the show on, and they're going to do it themselves. So what I always try to focus on, who can I reach if it's just that one person? And if it really helps you, pass it on, share it with others, because that's the whole point of this show. The premise of the show is every day we have a chance to refocus on our goals. That means there's going to be some points in life where your vision is going to be blurry because everyone goes through storms, everyone goes through trouble, and you cannot prevent that from happening. But you can decide how you react. You can decide that I'm going to actually refocus on what is important. Because obviously, when trouble comes, the natural thing for you to do is to focus on the negative. It's to keep looking at, oh, well, this is why I can't do it. Or, well, see, I told you so. No matter how much hard I work, it seems like I always get pushed back 10 steps when I take 3 good ones forward. You got to keep pressing forward. That's the problem. We like to quit too soon, and it's none of our fault until we start taking accountability and say, you know what, it kind of is, because at the end of the day, no one's going to step for you. You have to make the choice that no matter what happens to you, I don't care if you go to the last place. I don't care if you get kicked out the race. It's how are you going to react to the moment of challenge? And are you going to keep pressing forward? That is the secret sauce that I've learned from almost all my guests on the show, is that they found a way to press forward. And that's what separates the goats from the sheep.
I love it. No, you know, on podcasts, I always hear people, they're like, oh, I only have 6 subscribers. I'm like, doesn't matter how many, matters who. If you have 1 subscriber, it's Oprah Winfrey. That's a pretty good audience. And you have no idea what kind of impact, because this is very serious, Shemaiah. There might be a person listening to this right now and they're suicidal and you were able to save their life. I mean, it happens every single day. And that person whose life you saved, who's to say that they don't have a kid that becomes the medical doctor that saves your life someday? Like, you never know. And I just see way too many. I don't believe in just these random acts. I believe in providence. I believe everything has a purpose, and you're living your purpose. So keep it up, man.
When you look at all the abilities that you've been able to do throughout your professional career and working with different personalities for clients. I mean, let's just be real. When you're working with a client, it's not like an easy button like, oh, I got client ABC and it's going to be 1, 2, 3 and life is easy. I mean, let's talk about the reality of what it means to not just be a leader, but also to run a business, because it's a lot of sugarcoating out there. It's a lot of, here's some magic formulas and you're going to break records. Let's be real for a moment and tell people, what does it really feel like when the stove heats up for you, and how do you set your mind to adjust to those moments?
I love that, Shemai, because I work with a lot of entrepreneurs. And so when I first started my business, you should have met my website designer. His name was Danny. He was great. And you should have met my personal assistant. His name was Danny. He did a great job. And my marketing director, his name was Danny. You know, I was doing everything. You know, everybody thinks that, running my own business is great. Yeah, running your own business means you quit a 40-hour-a-week job working for somebody else, so you work 120 hours a week for yourself. But teaching did me a great service, because I would have 33 students in my class, and I guarantee you all 33 of them are different. And this is actually my problem with education, is we try a one-size-fits-all approach. And I'm like, it's ridiculous, because I read biographies of successful people all the time. And one of the common characteristics among most of these people is they dropped out of school. And I'm like, what are we doing wrong in school? And I was with a class a couple of weeks ago, and I pointed out to the kids, I'm like, okay, you can either do this worksheet for 20 minutes that you're going to do because your teacher's telling you to do, or how about we create a business? You can create a website and you can do your own social media and stuff. And so rather than the kid spending 20 minutes of hell doing something they're forced to do, they're going to spend 100 hours of their own free time because they're excited about doing it. I mean, this is what we need more of. I see so many people with the golden handcuffs. They started their job at 25 and they already retired at 75. I mean, they're just going through the motions. They're not doing anything extraordinary. And I can tell you, just from reading the good book, is all of us were put here on this planet for a higher purpose. It ain't to scan barcodes or things like that. And this is what I always tell my students all the time. I miss that about working with kids. I used to tell the kids, I'm like, sometimes you need somebody else to believe in you before you believe in yourself. I believe in all of you. They only give me the best and the brightest. So let's go out and make this world a better place. You know, I was blessed. I had two great parents. I've had great teachers. I had great coaches and mentors who have always been very supportive of me. And I know that there's a lot of people out there that don't have that. They're being told they're garbage and things like that. And that's what depresses me. And this is my number one goal when I'm on stage is I want you to leave here feeling better than when you came in. I want you laughing, smiling, happy. You know, I'm not one of these people that teach. One of the reasons I had to stop working with some of these companies is I saw they were coaching people to tell their most tragic story. I mean, there's three reasons why I don't do that. First of all, the world just survived a global pandemic. Everybody's had a lot of bad stuff happen to them. I don't think we need another sad story. I think we need more stories of hope. Second of all, I'm teaching you to create a presentation that you're going to deliver again and again to new audiences. Do you really want to talk about the worst moment of your life again and again? I mean, I have a friend, his daughter was murdered in a school shooting. He's told that story 1,000 times. I have no idea how he does that. You gotta be stronger than me. And then third, you know, yeah, I believe that these people that teach you to tell that same sad story again and again, by the 20th time you tell it, now those are crocodile tears. Now you're being manipulative. And I'm not saying it's not an effective sales strategy. It's actually a very effective sales strategy. But I personally don't want to have to take a shower once I get off stage because I just manipulated my audience. There are ethical ways to get people to want to do business with you. You already said what you're doing, which I just love, is just share this podcast. Hey, this might help somebody else. How cool is that? That's such a soft ask, and it's something that everybody listening to this right now, if you're not sharing this once a week with somebody, then you're doing a disservice. Like you're giving them your time. They can do that one simple action. It's a very important action. It drives me nuts how so few people actually do anything. I can't stand. There's a lot of human beings, but they're not human doings. Like do something, no matter what. You create this podcast. Like you've already done something that 99% of people don't do. And I admire you for that. I like to be around. That's the people I work with. These are people, I resisted coaching for a long time because as a teacher, I've always had a very high standard. I will not let you fail. I will stick on your back until you succeed. Working with entrepreneurs and executives and business owners, they're the easiest people in the world to work with because they want to succeed. They're like, man, I want to make more money. I want to have more freedom. I want to increase my impact. Well, those are great motivations. I want to work with that person.
Appreciate you saying all of that because it makes the whole conversation go full circle. And once again, listen, I'm Refocused Radio, watching us online, talking to our guest today, Dr. Danny Brassell, co-founder of the Well-Crafted Story Workshop. Everything is a story. Everything in life is a story. It's a story how I got here and driving in San Antonio traffic. You know, it's a story in starting the podcast in 2017. It's a story in what you said earlier about how you used to stutter. But I want to say something that I feel was very important in that story that touched me. And that is, I see a common thread. A lot of people who are successful, there was at some point a thorn in their side that kept them humble. Something that most would probably look at, wow, well, I feel bad for you. No, you took that opportunity to do something positive, to do something great. I mean, look at that transformation in itself, from stuttering to being well recognized and respected as a speaker and teaching others. I mean, wellcraftedstoryworkshop.com. I mean, think about that. That is so awesome. You didn't know that about this with me, but when I first started the show, I was the biggest introvert in the whole world. I didn't want to do this on video. People were pulling teeth like, man, when are you going to do video? When are you going to do YouTube? And I started doing YouTube video version of my audio show in September of last year. Since then, we have gained 5,500 subscribers. And it's still a story that's being developed. So I want to say to our audience, don't just share this podcast. Share your story. Focus on what ticks you and gets you excited. What makes you smile? Because if you can't find what makes you smile, then you need to stop everything and find what does. Because until you have that, No matter what happens in your life, when the storm comes, you will not make it if you don't have that reason that keeps you motivated to keep going. Maybe it's your family. Maybe it's something that someone said to you, grandparent, whatever that thing is. I have a saying, I'm going to wrap this up. When you hold on to your dream holds on to you. And the reason why your dream holds on to you is because when you finally realize your dream is bigger than you, then you're willing to serve. You cannot be equipped to do anything if it's all about yourself. It's so easy to fall in that trap. I've been there, done it. The only reason why this show has been able to grow is because every day I understand, even when times I don't want to understand, it's about service. And when I wanted to quit, when I look back, if I would have done that, I would not be able to experience the things I'm experiencing today. So may that be your motivation. Every time you want to put the dream on the shelf and let it collect dust, remember how much you already accomplished, because not everybody keeps going. So it's a miracle that you are even listening to this right now, and it's your sign that you must keep going. Everything's a work in progress. So don't quit too early.
I love it, Shemaiah. Thank you. As a thank you to you and your audience for listening to me today, I wanted to give everybody a freebie. So if you go to freestoryguide.com, guide like a tour guide, freestoryguide.com, I'm going to give everybody their own complimentary, well-crafted story blueprint. What this is the actual process that Coach Jimmy and I take our clients through on how to create their well-crafted stories. What this does for you is it takes the guesswork out of, why do I put this story here? Why do I do this in this part of the presentation? We show you exactly why and how you're going to get better results. And what this means for you is the peace of mind that you'll be able to get more clients and have a much greater impact. You can get that at freestoryguide.com. And Shemaiah, man, you totally pumped me up, man. This is like the best part of my day. Thank you for always being a bright light. I'll end the way I say, whether I was teaching my little ones or my older ones, as they left my classroom every day, I always said the same thing. I said, remember, kids, education is valuable, but execution is priceless. Knowledge is not power. Only applied knowledge is power. Knowing what the right thing to do and doing the right thing are two very different things. Let's go out, do the right thing, and make this world a better place. And you, my friend, are making the world a better place. Thanks for all that you do.
I appreciate that. And for those who are listening and watching us, please take the time to share this with a friend. Share it or rewatch it. If you don't want to if you don't want to share it and you're a little shy, that's okay. No problem. But try to rewatch it and re-listen to this, because I feel like it will definitely continue you in the right path and trending to the right direction. Because a lot of times we want to overthink life versus what can I do better? If it's just 1% better, that's all it takes. Because when you stop, guess what? Everything around you stop as well. Everything around you is a reflection of who you are. So if you want to feel like a champ, then guess what? You got to keep going. So with that said, I want to say to our guest today, Dr. Danny Brassell, thank you for your time. And like always, appreciate you.
Thank you, Shemaiah. God bless.